Dear grandfather, let us leave this sad place to-morrow, and beg our way from door to door.'
The old man covered his face with his hands, and hid it in the pillow of the couch on which he lay.
'Let us be beggars,' said the child, passing an arm round his neck. 'I have no fear, but we shall have enough. I'm sure we shall. Let us walk through country places, and sleep in fields and under trees, and never think of money again, or anything that can make you sad, but rest at nights, and have the sun and wind upon our faces in the day, and thank God together. Let us never set foot in dark rooms or melancholy houses any more, but wander up and down wherever we like to go, and when you are tired, you shall stop to rest in the pleasantest place that we can find. And I will go and beg for both.'
The child's voice was lost in sobs as she dropped upon the old man's neck, nor did she weep alone. These were not words for other ears, nor was it a scene for other eyes, and yet other ears and eyes were there, and greedily taking in all that passed, and moreover they were the ears and eyes of no less a person than Mr. Daniel Quilp, who, having entered unseen when the child first placed herself at the old man's side, refrained, actuated no doubt by motives of the purest delicacy, from interrupting the conversation, and stood looking on with his accustomed grin. Standing, however, being a tiresome attitude to a gentleman already fatigued with walking, and the dwarf being one of that kind of persons who usually make themselves at home, he soon cast his eyes upon a chair, into which he skipped with uncommon agility, and perching himself on the back with his feet upon the seat, was thus enabled to look on and listen with greater comfort to himself, besides gratifying at the same time that taste for doing something fantastic and monkey-like, which on all occasions had strong possession of him. Here then he sat, one leg cocked carelessly over the other, his chin resting on the palm of his hand, his head turned a little on one side, and his ugly features twisted into a complacent grimace. And in this position the old man, happening in course of time to look that way, at length chanced to see him, to his unbounded astonishment. The child uttered a suppressed shriek on beholding this agreeable figure. In their first surprise, both she and the old man, not knowing what to say, and half doubting its reality, looked shrinkingly at it. Not at all disconcerted by this reception, Daniel Quilp preserved the same attitude, merely nodding twice or thrice with great condescension. At length the old man pronounced his name, and inquired how he came there.
'Through the door,' said Quilp, pointing over his shoulder with his thumb. 'I'm not quite small enough to get through keyholes. I wish I was. I want to have some talk with you, particularly and in private, with nobody present, neighbour. Good-bye, little Nelly.'
Nell looked at the old man, who nodded to her to retire, and kissed her cheek.
'Ah!' said the dwarf, smacking his lips. 'What a nice kiss that was! Just upon the rosy part. What a capital kiss!'
Nell was none the slower in going away for this remark. Quilp looked after her with an admiring leer, and when she had closed the door, fell to complimenting the old man upon her charms.
'Such a fresh, blooming, modest little bud, neighbour,' said Quilp, nursing his short leg, and making his eyes twinkle very much. 'Such a chubby, rosy, cosy little Nell.'
The old man answered by a forced smile, and was plainly struggling with a feeling of the keenest and most exquisite impatience. It was not lost upon Quilp, who delighted in torturing him, or indeed anybody else, when he could.
'She's so,' said Quilp, speaking very slowly, and feigning to be quite absorbed in the subject, 'so small, so compact, so beautifully modelled, so fair, with such blue veins, and such a transparent skin, and such little feet, and such winning ways. But bless me, you're nervous. Why, neighbour, what's the matter? I swear to you,' continued the dwarf, dismounting from the chair and sitting down in it,
with a careful slowness of gesture very different from the rapidity with which he had sprung up unheard.
I swear to you that I'd no idea old blood ran so fast or kept so warm. I thought it was sluggish in its course, and cool, quite cool. I'm pretty sure it ought to be. Yours must be out of order, neighbour.
I believe it is, groaned the old man, clasping his head with both hands. There's burning fever here, and something now and then, to which I fear to give a name. The dwarf said never a word, but watched his companion as he paced restlessly up and down the room, and presently returned to his seat. Here he remained with his head bowed upon his breast for some time, and then suddenly raising it, said, "Once, and once for all, have you brought me any money?"
No,
returned Quilp. Then, said the old man, clenching his hands desperately, and looking upwards, the child and I are lost.
neighbour,
said Quilp, glancing sternly at him, and beating his hand twice or thrice upon the table to attract his wandering attention.
Let me be plain with you, and play a fairer game than when you held all the cards, and I saw but the backs and nothing more. You have no secret from me now.
The old man looked up, trembling.
You are surprised, said Quilp. Well, perhaps that's natural. You have no secret from me now. I say, no, not one. For now I know that all those sums of money, that all those loans, advances, and supplies that you have had from me, have found their way to... shall I say the word?
Aye, replied the old man. Say it, if you will.
To the gaming table, rejoined Quilp. Your nightly haunt. This was the precious scheme to make your fortune, was it? This was the secret certain source of wealth in which I was to have sunk my money, if I had been the fool you took me for. This was your inexhaustible mine of gold, your El Dorado, eh?
Yes, cried the old man, turning upon him with gleaming eyes. It was. It is. It will be till I die.
That I should have been blinded, said Quilp, looking contemptuously at him, by a mere shallow gambler.
I am no gambler, cried the old man fiercely. I call heaven to witness that I never played for gain of mine, or love of play, and that at every piece I staked I whispered to myself that orphan's name, and called on heaven to bless the venture, which it never did. Whom did it prosper? Who were those with whom I played? Men who lived by plunder, profligacy, and riot, squandering their gold in doing ill and propagating vice and evil. My winnings would have been from them. My winnings would have been bestowed to the last farthing on a young, sinless child whose life they would have sweetened and made happy. What would they have contracted? The means of corruption, wretchedness, and misery. Who would not have hoped in such a cause? Tell me that. Who would not have hoped as I did?
When did you first begin this mad career? Asked Quilp, his taunting inclination subdued for a moment by the old man's grief and wildness.
When did I first begin? He rejoined, passing his hand across his brow. When was it that I first began? When should it be but when I began to think how little I had saved, how long a time it took to save at all, how short a time I might have at my age to live, and how she would be left to the rough mercies of the world, with barely enough to keep her from the sorrows that wait on poverty. Then it was that I began to think about it.
After you first came to me to get your precious grandson packed off to sea? Said Quilp.
Shortly after that, replied the old man. I thought of it a long time,